Hey everybody, it's Bear. It's Wednesday, December 10th, 2025, and today is just sort of like a reflection video, I guess, or a response video. I don't do a lot of these just because I don't like to get into the whole arguments online kind of stuff. I actually do avoid that like on social media. I know that I do sometimes try to educate people, but for the most part, I see stuff and I just keep scrolling or I I definitely subscribe to the idea that staying out of the comments is good for your mental health. Sometimes I look at them and I choose not to engage, or I'll leave a quick response and move on with my life. Just because you're not gonna convince everybody um to be open-minded and see things your way. It's a waste of your time and energy. So anyway, today I wanted to actually go ahead and do that. Because it's something I see a lot. It's something that I was reflecting on yesterday with my mental health provider, and it's just sort of like something that, yeah, I wanna go ahead and put some thoughts out there. That's what social media and YouTube and stuff can be for sometimes. So, if this is something you already ideas that you already subscribe to, great. If it changes your mind, great. If I'm just speaking into the ether, great. So today I want to respond to the argument or the idea that trans people are, suffering from a mental health disorder because you think that, you're going to change your chromosomes, or that you're going to somehow change your biology. And you'll see this a lot. You'll hear this a lot where people say something along the lines of, in response to the statement that trans women are women or trans men are men, the response is often, well, do you still need a prostate exam? Because that makes you a man and not a woman. Or do you, still need a pap smear? Because that means you're a woman and not a man. They're trying to contradict the statement that my gender identity is valid by bringing up biology. And so I just want to put some thoughts out there, some response to that, and clarify that, first of all, biology is your sex and gender is your identity. And yes, this is new science. That does not make it fake science. The way science works is it keeps evolving, and sometimes it changes and it contradicts something from past science. That doesn't make it fake science. Like, a lot of people will then respond, if you do put that out there, like, oh, well, actually, we've now discovered that the gender identity part of your brain evolves during a different trimester in utero than your biological sex. That is just known, proven science. If you try to say that to one of these people that says, if your biology is X, then you are X. If you try to say that to them, about gender identity in the brain evolving in a growing at a different time in utero than your biological sex, they'll just be like, "Oh, it's fake science, it's new science," and the trans people are paying the scientists to make this up and publish it, which is, I'm not even going to get into that. It's so out there, you know. But that's what it is when people bring up your actual body, that is your biological sex, and that's a fixed thing. You cannot change your biological sex. That's absolutely true. Um, and you can't change your chromosomes. Not that everybody knows what their chromosomes even are. That argument is also just completely invalid, because don't tell me that by growing up identifying as male and having your identity and your biology match, and that means you're XY, like, you don't actually know that. The intersex conditions and chromosomal anomalies exist, and if there's no reason for you to go looking into them, you never actually know what they are. What you're doing is you're being presumptuous, right? You may think that my chromosomes are XX because I was assigned female at birth based on my biology, but we don't actually know that unless I go and get my chromosomes tested, which I'm curious about, based on like my hormone levels when I first started tea and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't know. And no, I am not under the disillusionment that I could change my chromosomes or change my biological sex. Transgender is an adjective. All right. It is a word that describes something. So, like, I am a short man. I am a white man. Those are adjectives. They describe me as an individual, right? Or I am a short person. Short being the adjective. Transgender is an adjective. It describes me as a person. So when I use the label transgender man, I am using an adjective that describes something about me. What that means is I am a man who is slightly different from a biological male or a cisgender male. Cis being a Latin prefix, which means to stay on the same side of, right? Trans means to cross over, like transatlantic. I've done a whole other video on the Latin prefixes, right? Which are free to check out or acknowledge or ignore, like whatever. But it describes me as a person, and the trans label or identity or adjective or whatever you want to call it, it is an acknowledgement of the fact that I had to make changes to my body or to my presentation or, ask people to update their pronouns. I had to make changes in my life in order to live as a male. I'm under no, like, confusion or disillusionment that I have biological differences from a cisgender male. So this whole argument of, trans people are suffering from a mental health disorder because they think that, they're going to magically change and no longer have a uterus or no longer have a prostate or whatever, that's just inherently not true. No trans person is under this, like, belief that when they come out, all of their biology changes. We are acknowledging that we are a different category of person. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I know that I need to have different medical care because I'm not a biological cisgender male. There's no confusion there. And I'm not, like, telling people, oh, I was born with XX chromosomes and now I identify as male and poof, my chromosomes have changed. No, that's that. Nobody's running around saying that. What it means when we make the statement, trans women are women, it just means, like, that they belong in women's spaces and activities and they deserve the respect of just being treated as any other woman. That's all that means. It just means be kind to people because they deserve it, because they just want to present and live comfortably. When we're going around saying trans women are women, all we're saying is just let them be. Let them exist as women. And the reason that we stand so strongly behind that statement, and especially for trans women, is because they get chased out of spaces that they just are trying to exist in. And I'm not going to go into the whole trans athletes thing because that's a subject for a completely different video. I'm talking about, like, women's crafts fairs, and professional women's spaces. Because women have fought for decades or hundreds of years to be taken as seriously as professional men, right? Like in professions like, legal or whatever, right? Doctors. Like, women have fought to be respected and paid the same wages as their male coworkers. And trans women get chased out of those spaces because they're trans. And people want to be like, oh, well, you're just a man invading our spaces. And it's like, no, they're trying to live as a woman and they're trying to stand with other women for women's equality. Side note, also trans women's equality. Like that's all those statements mean. So when people get up in arms and they want to say like, "Oh, no, sir, you still have a prostate. Like you're not a woman." That's not what anybody is saying. We're just trying to say let people live comfortably and just acknowledge them with their pronouns, no matter what you think or wonder about their anatomy and their biology. Just let them live. And I don't really understand why that's such a big ask for some people, and why some people just need to make other people's lives miserable and have the copious amounts of free time to go onto the internet and find these posts and follow these people in order to troll them. Like, please get a job or get a hobby, because that hobby's not it. I don't know what kind of life you live that is your hobby and brings you some kind of joy. It blows my mind. And yes, I do look at the comments. I mentioned that earlier. I said, not engaging in the comments, not looking at the comments is, self-care. That's true. I can't help it. It's sort of like, oh, if I stick my hand in the fire this time, maybe it won't burn me. And I stick my hand in the fire. It's like I think things are going to change, right? Like, it's the definition of insanity. I look in the comments hopeful that I'm going to see some kind of change in the world, or because, it's like a train wreck, you can't look away. Sometimes if you see a really bad accident, you can't help but look at it, because you're like, you're curious about, the catastrophe that's happened possibly on the side of the road, right? Same thing for me with looking at the comments. Sometimes I'm like, oh, let's see what kind of crazy shenanigans are going on in these comments today. And every once in a while, I'm just overjoyed to see somebody else engaging and just calling people out on their BS. It brings me true joy, right? So sometimes looking at the comments actually can do the opposite. It can bring absolute joy. But man, is it hard to not engage with some of these people and point out the fact that they are trying to state like 8th grade biology from the 80s and use that as like a scientific argument against trans people's existence. And it's like, okay, why don't you go pick up, a science journal, a current one, not one from decades ago that somehow proves your point, and like not get up in arms and call it, fake new science. So anyway, those are just my thoughts about this so-called argument and its invalidity. I want to give a shout out to the Transplaining podcast. They actually had Dr. Kristine Coons on. She did a total of 3 episodes where she went in depth into this stuff, and I'll link those shows in the comments of this video. I'm not gonna try to repeat any of that. It doesn't make sense. I'm not a doctor. I'm giving you a layman's version of the things that she said, but check out her episodes on that podcast. They did a fantastic job bringing her on and giving her the time that she needed to just even get into this stuff a little. And she had said at one point, she was like, oh, I've got hundreds more slides that we could get into and we don't have time. So I'm going to link those. I spoke to them a couple of weeks ago about the trans-military experience and whatnot. So whenever that episode drops, I'll probably link it onto the channel as well. They're doing a great job. Brand new podcast. So I'll go ahead and link that, and feel free to binge those episodes and save them for your own convenience, so that when somebody brings this stuff up, you can say, actually, here's a scientist talking about this stuff and talking about these differences, and maybe you can take the time to educate yourself, and let's just stay hopeful that when we do engage with those people, that they actually take that deep breath and they take the time to educate themselves and make it worth it, because otherwise you're just screaming into the void and it gets exhausting. So take care of yourselves, stay out of the comments unless they bring you joy, and don't engage with the trolls. See you next time.